Jason Wolf is he's one of my good friends, and he had, lately, like this year, he's been telling me like, you got to get back into boxing. You got to get back into boxing. This he says that this is a we're in a new golden era or a new golden age of boxing, right? And I'm always just like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? And because to me, if there's no right, it's like if there's no sun, right, then then how can there be life on the planets, right? And I come from the era of boxing of De La Hoya. He passed the torch to Mayweather and Pacquiao, right? So you had megastars who they allowed for the fighters who weren't as much household names, weren't as mainstream to matter, right? So the guys and then when I was that era between 2007 and like that 10 years that Mayweather Pacquiao era. I mean, I was all about boxing, and I was about boxing at every level, right? So everything that was on HBO, everything that was on Showtime, it didn't matter if it was a pay per view or just if it was a Showtime, what was a Showbox, or if it was HBO After Dark, I was on it, right? And but that was when you had, like I said, you had super duper stars that gave meaning to everything else and relevance to everything else that was going on, right? So beneath the Mayweather and Pacquiao level, you had all these great fighters: Miguel Cotto, Shane Mosley, uh, uh, your Moraleses and Marquez and Barrera and Margarito and Andre Ward, Bernard Hopkins, all these greats, right, giving us these great fights and whatnot. And that was my era. In this era, because there is no, I mean, the last real fight that did, like, I think a million plus buys. I guess it was that heavyweight fight. I guess between who was it? It was Wilder and Fury. Please, I mean, if I sound like a novice talking about this current era of boxing, forgive me. I promise you, I am not a boxing novice. You can go and you can look. I used to write for the Sporting News. They had a blog back in the day in 2009 called The Rumble. It was boxing and MMA. I write for that. I have my blog, the neongraveyard.com, where I used to write fight previews. I am a I have been a boxing aficionado, right? I was part of that community with other guys in my time. Your Carlos Acevedo and Jimmy Tobin and those guys, Bart Berry. You know, I had a I was putting in work. You know, Tim Starks. That was my era. You know, but it's just a different era of boxing now. And you don't have like everybody says, Gervonta Davis. But if Gervonta Davis is the biggest star in boxing, he's not doing a million buys. You know, so what does it all mean, right? And like even Crawford and Spence only did like 600,000 pay per view buys. When Mayweather and Pacquiao were fighting, that was a big deal. How many pay per view buys you got? We used to talk about that all the time. Every time they would fight, it was like, hey, Pacquiao did 1. Well, before it did 1.4 million. So who's the bigger draw? I gotcha. It was a war between those two fan bases, right? And now it's different. I mean, it's not different because you have Haney and you have uh, Davis, and these fighters at that level who are basically they're the fill-ins, I guess, for what my era had, but they just don't do the numbers, and they don't uh, bring in the people like that, you know. Um, they don't galvanize the public in that way that Mayweather and Pacquiao did, that Oscar De La Hoya did, and the numbers reflect that. Um, but yeah, I think it would be Fury and Wilder. I'm not even sure, bro. Was it? I don't know, bro. Fury and Usyk. I don't know. Like I said, bro, this and I mean it's crazy. It always amazes me when I watch. Uh, like I said, when Jason would tell me this is a new golden era, and the way people talk about this heavyweight era of Fury and Wilder and Joshua, and then what Usyk is doing, and act like it's something like, bro, please knock it off. When I was a kid, it was Tyson, it was Holyfield, it was Lennox Lewis, it was Riddick Bowe. These are Hall of Fame. These are greats who put up numbers at the box office. So like to talk about some Tyson Fury, yeah, he's a great fighter, but and Deontay Wilder he's a physical specimen, and the other kid Joshua, he's a physical specimen, and he should have been the best. But maybe if you put all three of those fighters together, you'd have somebody who could hold a candle to a Lennox Lewis, a Mike Tyson, a Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. Like I said, uh, but these guys, they're not that. I'm not gonna quite put Riddick Bowe in that category, but he gave us great fights also. Um, and don't even get me started on the before my time, in the '70s. I mean, come on, you but yeah, man, it's like they don't do the numbers like that anymore. So it's like to me, it doesn't matter. So I don't pay that much attention to it anymore, right? And so, uh, but this Canelo and Crawford fight, it does have my attention somewhat, even though I'm not sure how competitive it will really be, right? Because you know, I mean it's been it's been it's been done before what Crawford is trying to do, right? I think Crawford's only fought one fight at 154, right? So technically he's moving up two weight classes to fight Canelo, right? Now, of course, what he's trying to do basically, if he accomplishes this feat, it'll put him up there with Henry Armstrong and Manny Pacquiao, the other great. I mean, well, the two greatest weight jumping fighters. Of course, Pacquiao, an 8 division champion, and Pacquiao's making a comeback. By the way, he'll make a comeback shortly after he's inducted into the Hall of Fame in a couple months. And then the other, you have Armstrong, of course. Henry Armstrong was at the top. If you're talking pound for pound fighters, right? Meaning you're taking Muhammad Ali, and you're saying, okay, Ali was a heavyweight, so you're not including him in the pound for pound rankings, right? Pound for pound, Henry Armstrong probably the second greatest fighter of all time after after Sugar Ray Robinson. Of course, Robinson is the consensus. But after Robinson, it's probably Henry Armstrong. And then you have Willie Pep and people talk about Benny Leonard. These types of guys. My personal favorite, Roberto Duran. Duran is top 10, and I think he's closer to 5 than he is to 10 for sure. So uh, people like that. It's for him, not just Armstrong and Pacquiao, but also Duran, of course. Those are the three greatest fighters as far as moving up in weight classes and taking on bigger guys. You had Armstrong, who won he held simultaneously the featherweight, the lightweight, and the welterweight championship, and tried to win the middleweight championship, but he lost the decision. You had, of course, Pacquiao, 8 division champion, uh, started at 106 pounds, actually, won his first bout at flyweight. Became famous fighting Barrera and Morales and Marquez at 126 and 130. And then one fight at 135 against David Diaz. One fight jumps up to from 135 to 147 to send Oscar De La Hoya into retirement. Comes back down to 140, flattens Ricky Hatton in the second round. And I always remember where I was when I was watching that fight because Pacquiao got, of course, knocked out cold. And my dad was sitting. I was in the living room with my dad and my grandmother. My dad was sitting to the right, and he was saying, "Oh my goodness, he's in trouble." I always remember, what's his name, saying when they were, because they were, Hatton was flat on his back at first, and it seemed like he was, gasping for air, and they started to try to turn him on the side. As I understand now, was to try to open up the airwaves so that he could breathe better. And you heard Jim Lampley. I always remember Jim Lampley going, and I'm not sure they're doing Haddon any trouble, any favors by moving him around. I'm not a medical guy, but he is in very bad straits there. And Emmanuel Stewart going, he's in bad shape. And my dad was sitting there, and my dad was going, oh, he's in trouble. And I was almost about to have a panic attack because I thought, but that was like kind of that was like, I hadn't seen anybody get knocked out like that at that point, right? So I was really worried for Haddon. But as it turns out, people get, most of the time, 99% of the time, no matter how hard the knockout looks, the guy is, it's temporary, right? And then, Pacquiao, then, of course, the Cotto fight after that. And that was really from there it was, you have the Margarito fight, Josh Quaddy, ended up fighting Mayweather. But that run from Oscar through Cotto will never be forgotten by anybody who was there at that time, remembers what that felt like to witness that. And then you had, of course, Duran, like I said, my personal favorite of the old school fighters, I should say. Mayweather is my favorite of all time, but Duran is my favorite of the old school fighters. And, of course, Duran, who ruled the 70s at lightweight, and then moved up in 1980. And, Ray Leonard at the time, 5'10", now a true welterweight, 74-inch reach, 24 years old. Duran was 29 when he fought Leonard, and had already fought over 70 somewhat. I think it was somewhere in the low 70s of fights that he already had. So Leonard way bigger, way younger, way fresher, and Duran beat him toe to toe over 15 rounds in Montreal, right? Also won at 154 against Davey Moore, and 160 against Iron Barkley. He beat Davey Moore to a pulp. Moore was never the same. Against bigger, younger guys, Duran just, and then, also, the Tommy Hearns that was a 54, I think. That was a step too far, but he's, only guy to take Marvin Hagler a full 15 at 160 pounds. Duran was 5'7". And he's up at 160 fighting Marvin Hagler and taking Hagler the distance. Only time. No, I'm sorry. Let me not say that. But yeah. Only person to take Hagler to all 15 rounds at middleweight, I believe. Right. So Duran was just incredible. And basically, what Crawford is trying to do is he's trying to do the same thing. He's trying to move up in class. He's trying to move up. He's trying to move up in weight to face a fighter in Canelo Alvarez, and I would argue that other than Duran beating Leonard, and I know Canelo is like 35 now, right? But he's a fighters these days, like in every sport, they age better than they did in the past, right? So Canelo moving up to what was that? Was that 75 that Canelo fought that other guy? That was a step too far, but it's a step too. It could be a step too far also for Crawford to move up to 168 pounds. And what is Crawford, like 5'8", right? Um, so when Canelo was fighting at light heavyweight against Bivol, um, that was taking it too far, right? But he tried it and he failed. It happens, right? Like when Oscar moved up to 160 to face Bernard, right? It was just a step too far, right? And there's no shame in that. Bivol was a great fighter, right? But it could be that what Canelo tried to do against Bivol and failed to do, Bud Crawford will fail in what he's trying to do with Canelo. It's like, and if he doesn't, if he wins, nothing will ever top what Duran did against Leonard. Right? Nothing will ever top that. So, one of the greatest wins in boxing history, right? What he did. Uh, but um, if Crawford is able to move up, and first of all, what people will probably say is, well, it's the same thing that happened when Pacquiao beat beat Oscar, right? To this day, people just say, well, I mean, Oscar was clearly done, right? Um, but also, you always have to give credit to the fighter for, if he made him, he delivered the death knell, you know. Um, but I think Canelo has more left in the tank than that Oscar that Pacquiao fought, and I don't know if Crawford, as great as he is at his size, I don't know if he's. I know Canelo is not really. Canelo probably not physically not a true 168 pounder, more like 160, and Crawford is Crawford really kind of he wasn't really making I don't think 47 anymore. So it's really, I don't know. Who knows? Because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, because they're like the same height, but Canelo has just been fighting it. Canelo obviously he's the bigger man, but who knows? There's not even one situation where I'm sitting here and as I'm talking through it, I'm starting to actually come around to the idea of it. But it's just the optics of it, of somebody at 100 and who was just at a 147, and then did one fight at 154, moving up to 168, and having a legitimate chance against a Hall of Fame fighter, first ballot Hall of Fame fighter who can still fight, right? It's just historically, that's not something that anybody would think was really feasible, right? But people didn't think that Pacquiao beating Oscar was feasible, right? So I don't know. It's going to show. I think it's going to show just how great Crawford is. Because they're I actually think Bud Crawford Bud is older than Canelo. Canelo will be 35 in July, and Bud is how old is Bud? Let me see. I think Bud is like my age. Isn't Bud like 30? Yeah, Bud is 37 already. But Bud will be 38, so Bud will turn 38 2 weeks after the fight. So he's basically 3 years older than Canelo is. He is 3 years older than Canelo. So I don't know, man. It's asking a lot, right? And like I said, he's a darn good. He's like a Mayweather 37. He's not an old 37. But he, like I said, it's just gonna be interesting, man. But it is a lot to. The thing he has going for him is that they are the same height, right? Canelo should be the stronger man, but I don't know. It's just hard to kind of, like I said, the idea of it, right? He was just this was like a year and a half ago. He was at 47 beating Spence, and now he's going to be at 68 fighting Canelo, and Canelo's been fighting at, in that weight number, is that how you say it, for some years now. Let me see how long Canelo's been fighting at 168. Canelo got to 168, and Canelo got to super middleweight in Canelo been at super middleweight since 2018. That was his first fight at super middleweight. So how the hell is Crawford? When I say that Canelo is probably not a true super middleweight, because how can you be 5'7" and be a true super middleweight, right? Because James Toney was 5'9". Bernard was, I know Bernard doesn't really count because Bernard was just like a giant, right? Roy Jones was 5'10" though. Bernard would always keep his, Bernard just stayed in such fantastic shape that he was able to stay at weight classes that he really didn't belong in at his size and with his build. But he was but yeah, you think about guys like that. Andre Ward was 5, those were like 5. I think Ward was like 5. Andre Ward was taller. Andre Ward was like 6 feet. So you wouldn't imagine. Nobody would say, okay, like Canelo versus Bernard Hopkins or Andre Ward. Nobody would. Oh, but Bernard didn't even fight. Bernard fought it. No, Bernard skipped 168, didn't he? But I'm saying, we think of him in those terms with those fighters. Like that. Like Joe Kozaki was. No, wait, Bernard did not. Bernard did fight at 168. I'm sorry. What am I talking about? But Bernard fought Kozaki at hold on a second. Where did Bernard fight Kozaki at? What weight class? They must have fought at light heavyweight. Yeah, so Bernard he skipped right from middleweight to after the Tarver fight. That was at middleweight, and he skipped light heavyweight. So Bernard skipped super middleweight. But yeah, we think of him in those in those terms of anybody who ever fought between 160 and 175. We think of Bernard Hopkins in those terms, even though he technically skipped 168. But you would never say, Canelo versus Bernard Hopkins, Canelo against Andre Ward, Canelo against Roy Jones. Nobody would ever even propose such mythical, fights, right? So, I guess that would give Crawford a better chance because they are more similar in size, right? But then again, you also wouldn't ask, Crawford to fight those same guys, right? Nobody would even think of that. That's like saying, okay, Mayweather fight Bernard Hopkins, fight Andre Ward, right? It doesn't make any sense. So, that's how that shapes up. Hopefully, when the fight, gets closer, like fight week, maybe I'll be able to get Jason. He always resists coming on here. Maybe I'll be able to get him to come on here and chat it up with me. And we can do a formal fight preview for that one.